Do you want something from me too, cowboy? The Arapaho girl's quiet question. The twin sons of Iridia. 7 sank low over the horizon, turning the desert sky into shades of red and gold. Dust and sparks rose from the cracked ground as a lone figure moved across the dunes. Jace 6-shot Mallory rode his hover horse like a shadow of the past, metal hooves clinking softly with each step. His long coat flapped in the wind, carrying the scent of oil and sand. The townsfolk of Dustspire had seen him from afar, but no one approached. They only watched, whispering among themselves. Because travelers like Jace rarely brought good news. The town of Dustspire was small, just a cluster of buildings made of metal, wood, and salvaged spacecraft parts. Solar panels jutted awkwardly from the roofs, and wind turbines spun lazily above the water tanks. A few wagons, hover wagons really, were parked in the streets. The townspeople were survivors, hardened by the harsh desert moons and constant dust storms, but they were curious too. A lone cowboy from beyond the red sands was a rare sight, and everyone could feel that something unusual had arrived with him. Jace didn't look around. His eyes scanned the horizon with quiet alertness. He had come for work, but not the kind of work anyone in Dustspire would understand at first glance. Strange reports had reached him, mining bots behaving oddly near the old Carthon mines, signals from a place no one had dared visit for decades, and rumors of lights flickering across the dunes at night. Jace had learned long ago that rumors usually carried more truth than anyone would admit. He stopped near the edge of town, where the sand met a cluster of ruined structures. Sparks from his hover horse's hooves glimmered in the last rays of the suns. That's when he saw her. A girl stood near the ruins, her silhouette outlined by the sunset. Her hair was dark, with streaks of silver that shimmered faintly in the wind. She wore traditional Arapaho markings across her arms and face, but her clothing was practical, suited for the harsh desert rather than ceremony. She did not run. She did not hide. She simply watched him with eyes that seemed older than her years, calm and curious. Jace slowed his horse, unsure what to make of her. No one had ever dared approach him first. He had learned to expect threats, lies, or trickery, but not quiet questions. "Do you want something from me too, cowboy?" Her voice was soft, almost like the wind brushing the dunes, but there was an edge to it, a weight that made Jace stop completely. The words hung in the air. Jace's hand instinctively brushed the grip of his blaster, though he knew there was no immediate danger. He had been asked many questions before, but none carried the strange honesty of this one. He tipped his wide-brimmed hat slightly, letting the shadow hide most of his face. "Maybe," he said, carefully. "Depends on what you've got." The girl, Kaya, tilted her head slightly. She didn't smile, but there was a spark of understanding in her eyes. She turned and began walking slowly toward a path between the dunes, her bare feet barely sinking into the sand. Jace dismounted and followed. The desert around them was silent, except for the occasional creak of old metal or the distant hum of wind turbines. The dunes rolled endlessly, red and golden under the fading suns. Dustspire had been built in this harsh place for a reason, its proximity to the old Carthon mines. But no one ventured far from the town, not anymore. The mines were dangerous, abandoned, and rumored to be cursed. Kaya led Jace to a small ridge where the ground dropped sharply into a valley dotted with remnants of mining machinery. She pointed toward a half-buried tower rising like a skeleton from the sand. "That's where it started," she said. Her voice was steady, but Jace could hear a slight tension beneath it. Signals. Strange lights. Machines that shouldn't work. People who went missing. Jace crouched, studying the ruins. The tower looked old, corroded by time and sandstorms. Its antennas were bent and broken, but faint pulses of light still blinked from its core. Whoever built it had intended it to last centuries, but only time, dust, and neglect had passed since then. "What do you want me to do?" Jace asked, glancing at her. "I need someone to understand it," she said simply. "Someone who can see things clearly without fear. Someone who won't run." Jace nodded. He didn't answer right away because he already sensed the truth in her words. Most people ran from mysteries. Most people ignored signals they didn't understand. But he never had. They approached the tower together. Kaya moved with surprising grace, stepping carefully over broken metal and sand traps. Jace followed, his boots clanking softly on the rusted walkways. He noted the precision of her movements, the way she seemed to know every weak spot and loose plate as if she had spent years here. Inside, the tower smelled of metal and ancient dust. Broken screens hung from walls, some flickering with unreadable codes. Panels of wire snaked across the floor, tangled and dead. A faint hum resonated from deep within the tower, a vibration that made Jace's teeth tingle. "This signal," Kaya whispered, moving toward a panel of lights and dials, "it shouldn't exist. None of the old tech here should be powered anymore. But it is." Jace crouched beside her, scanning the panels. Indeed, something strange was happening. A soft pulse ran through the tower, irregular but alive. He recognized the patterns from old tracking work, from systems he had dismantled or repaired on countless planets. This was intentional. Someone or something wanted to be found. "They're calling out," he said. "Not for us, not exactly, but for someone." Kaya nodded, almost relieved that he understood. "I've been waiting for help, but I needed someone who could see it without fear. Someone who wouldn't panic when the drones came." "Drones?" Jace raised an eyebrow. "Scout drones," she said, "from the colonies beyond the belt. They're searching for the same thing we are. They won't stop. They'll scan the desert, follow the signals, take whatever they find. If they reach Dustspire, it'll be over for everyone here." Jace leaned back against a wall, studying her. She was small, young, and quiet, but not weak. There was a courage in her that reminded him of the old cowboys he had ridden with long ago, the ones who faced danger without complaint, without hesitation. "All right," he said finally.
"I'll help, but I don't do this for free."
Kaya didn't blink. "I'm not asking for free. I'm asking for trust." That was fair. He hadn't trusted anyone in years. But something about her, maybe it was the way she stared into the blinking lights, or the way she moved with certainty through the ruins, made him want to. Outside, the twin suns were nearly gone, leaving a deep violet sky sprinkled with stars. The desert cooled, and the first lights of Dustspire blinked on. Somewhere in the distance, the hum of the drones grew faint, but steady. Jace mounted his hoverhorse, and Kaya climbed onto a smaller one she had brought. Together, they watched the horizon, silent but ready. The journey ahead would be dangerous, full of unknowns. But for the first time in years, Jace felt that thrill, the kind that made him alive, made the long roads and lonely nights worth something. "Tomorrow," Kaya said softly, "we follow the signal." "Tomorrow," Jace echoed.
The wind carried the words across the dunes.
Somewhere beyond the desert, the pulse of the tower continued. Someone or something was reaching out. And for the first time, Jace felt that maybe, just maybe, he had a purpose beyond wandering the red sands. As the night deepened, the two figures remained on the ridge, watching the desert stretch endlessly before them. Stars shimmered above, and the hum of the tower pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat waiting to be understood. Jace couldn't say what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't be facing it alone. And for a cowboy who had long forgotten what it meant to trust, that was enough for now. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly, casting pale light over the dunes. Dustspire was quiet, the townsfolk still half asleep, their faces marked by curiosity and caution. Jace, Six-Shot Mallory, and Kaya were already on the ridge near the old communications tower. The air was sharp with the scent of hot metal and desert sand. Kaya moved first, her bare feet barely making a sound as she adjusted the small pack on her back. Inside were tools, wires, and a few strange devices Jace had never seen. She glanced at him, her eyes calm but alert. "You ready?" she asked. Jace checked the hover horse's thrusters, nodding slowly. "As ready as I'll ever be." The tower looked different in daylight. The metal panels glinted faintly, showing cracks and corrosion. Its antennas pointed in strange angles like a mechanical skeleton frozen mid-motion. But what mattered was the signal, the pulse that had drawn them here. It was faint but steady, like a heartbeat hidden beneath centuries of sand and dust. Inside, Kaya guided Jace to the control panel. Wires tangled across the floor, some broken, some sparking faintly. Lights blinked in irregular patterns. A low hum vibrated through the floor. "It's not random," Kaya said. "It's trying to communicate." Jace crouched beside her, examining the panels. He had seen similar patterns before, though never in a place this old. The lights weren't just blinking. They were forming codes, repeating patterns, signals meant for someone who could understand them. "Someone is sending a message," he said. "Not a warning, more like a call." Kaya's eyes widened. "Exactly. That's what I've been trying to explain. But the drones?" She paused, looking toward the horizon. Far in the distance, small glimmers of movement reflected the rising suns. Drones. Silent, hovering machines scanning the desert, searching for the source of the signal. "They won't leave us alone," she added. Jace frowned. He had dealt with hostile forces before, but these drones were different. They didn't just attack. They searched. They were precise, relentless, and patient. If they found this signal before they understood it, the entire town could be in danger. "We need to trace it," Jace said, his fingers moving over the broken controls. "See where it leads." Kaya nodded and handed him a small, worn device, a mix of old and new tech. "This will help amplify the signal. The path is tricky. The pulse twists through the desert like a river. You have to follow it carefully, or you'll lose it." Jace connected the device. Immediately, a faint map appeared on the dusty panel, lines of energy glowing like veins beneath the sand. The signal was moving, shifting in waves. Somewhere far beyond the dunes, something was waiting. "They want to be found," Jace murmured, tracing the glowing lines with his finger. "Or someone wants to find them," Kaya added. Together they worked in silence. The hum of the tower filled the room, mingling with the distant buzz of the drones. Hours passed as Jace adjusted the readings, fine-tuning the device to track the pulse through the desert. The light of the twin suns climbed higher, turning the sand a brilliant orange. Sweat glistened on Jace's forehead beneath his hat. Finally, the path was clear. The pulse led east, toward the canyon region beyond the town, where the desert dropped sharply into rocky valleys and scattered ruins. "We follow it there," Jace said. "But we have to move carefully." "The drones." He trailed off, looking at the horizon. They were closer now, tiny glints in the distance, scanning the desert like predatory birds. Kaya nodded. "I know. That's why I came prepared." She reached into her pack and pulled out a small holographic device. It projected a faint shield over the ridge, shimmering like heat waves on the sand. "This will hide us for a while. Long enough to reach the canyon." Jace smiled faintly. He had never trusted a girl so quickly, but Kaya's calm confidence was contagious. "Let's move." They mounted their hover horses and descended the ridge, careful to keep their shadows low and their movements smooth. The desert around them seemed alive, the sand shifting under the twin suns, and distant jagged rocks like the teeth of some massive creature. The drones followed at a distance, scanning, precise and silent. The canyon loomed ahead, a maze of rock formations and narrow passes. Jace slowed, studying the path. The desert had a way of hiding traps, of concealing dangers beneath beauty. Broken mining machines, rusted metal plates, and hidden sand pits made the journey tricky. "Watch the edges," Jace said, pointing to a narrow ledge. "One false step and we could fall 50 feet. Kaya nodded, her eyes sharp. She guided the way with surprising agility, her small frame moving easily over jagged rocks. Jace followed, careful not to disturb loose stones. The pulse on the device hummed stronger now, almost like it was urging them forward. Hours passed. The suns moved higher, the desert heat rising. Sweat soaked Jace's coat, and his hands ached from gripping the reins. But the signal pulled them onward, deeper into the canyon, towards something unknown. Finally, they reached a plateau. From here they could see the hidden valley below, a strange mix of natural rock and scattered metal ruins. The pulse was strongest here. Kaya dismounted and crouched beside the device, tracing the lines of energy with her fingers. "It's here," she whispered. "Someone, or something, is waiting in the valley." No signs of life. Only the ruins, half buried in sand, and the faint hum of the pulse. He could feel the tension in the air, the sense that they were being watched. Kaya looked up at him. "We need to be careful. The drones won't give up." "They'll scan the valley. If they find the signal before we do, it'll be lost." Jace nodded. "Then we go slow, quiet, careful." They descended into the valley. The ruins were strange, alien in design, with smooth metal panels curving at impossible angles, interspersed with broken mining machines. The pulse was stronger here, vibrating through the ground. Jace felt it under his boots, a faint energy that prickled his skin. Suddenly the pulse shifted, changing its pattern. Lights flickered across the ruins like someone, or something, was responding. Jace froze. He had seen strange tech before, but this was alive in a way that made him uneasy. Kaya touched his arm. "It knows we're here," she whispered. "And it wants us to follow?" They moved deeper into the valley, the pulse guiding them. Broken walkways led to a strange structure, half buried in sand. Its metal panels glowed faintly, and the air hummed with energy. Jace examined it closely. "This isn't just old tech, it's sophisticated. Someone built this to last, to survive the desert. And they wanted it to be found." Kaya nodded. That's why I'm here. My ancestors knew about this. They left clues, maps, and markings, but no one else could understand it, until now. As they approached the structure, the hum of the pulse intensified. Tiny lights blinked along its surface, forming patterns that seemed almost like a face. Jace's hand hovered over his blaster, ready for danger, but nothing attacked. The pulse was not hostile. It was inviting. "They want us inside," Kaya said, her voice barely a whisper. Jace studied the structure. The entrance was a narrow hatch, barely big enough for a person to slip through. Metal panels slid open with a soft hiss as they approached. Inside, the air was cool, almost refreshing compared to the desert heat. Panels of light illuminated the walls, and strange machines hummed softly. "This is incredible," Jace said, moving carefully. "Whoever built this knew things we don't." Kaya stepped forward, tracing the glowing lines along the walls. "It's a map, a guide. And it's calling for someone who can understand it, someone who can protect it." Jace glanced at her, realizing that she wasn't just a guide, she was the guardian. And for the first time, he felt that their partnership was more than survival. They were connected to something bigger, something that could change the fate of the frontier. From outside, a faint shimmer appeared in the distance. The drones were getting closer, their sensors sweeping the valley. Time was short. Kaya touched a panel, sending a pulse back along the glowing lines. The structure responded, lights flickering in a sequence that Jace recognized immediately. It was a warning. Not for them, but for the drones. "They're not ready to meet us yet," Kaya said, "but we need to move fast. The pulse has a purpose, and we can't fail." Jace nodded, feeling a rush of determination. He had come to this desert for work, for adventure, for mysteries, but this was bigger than anything he had imagined. And now, with Kaya at his side, he was ready to face it, whatever it might be. Together they moved deeper into the structure, following the pulse, following the unknown. And outside, the drones circled, waiting, searching, unaware that the desert itself had already chosen its protectors. The desert winds had calmed, leaving the air still and heavy with heat. Jace, Six-Shot Mallory, and Kaya rode their hover horses slowly through the narrow canyon paths. The pulse from the hidden structure in the valley behind them was faint now, but its guidance had led them to something far more important, a path across the canyon that would bring them closer to the truth. The canyon was a maze of jagged rocks and deep crevices. Shadows stretched long, cutting strange shapes across the sand as the suns climbed high. Broken mining machines littered the edges of the cliffs, remnants of old expeditions that had disappeared without a trace. Jace scanned everything carefully. In this desert, one wrong step could end the journey, and the drones that had been circling Dustspire were still out there, scanning, searching, relentless in their pursuit. Kaya led the way with confidence, her small frame moving easily across narrow ledges and unstable sand paths. She paused often, listening to the hum of the devices they carried and tracing the faint pulse still lingering in the air. Jace followed, his eyes alert, fingers brushing the controls on his blaster. Danger was near, but so was discovery. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Jace asked quietly, keeping his voice low. "The drones?" Kaya's gaze didn't waver from the path ahead. "Yes. They'll scan the canyon. But the pulse is stronger here. It's guiding us, not them. If we trust it, we can reach the hidden colony before the drones do." Jace nodded. He had been tracking, hunting, and surviving across many worlds, but this was different. He wasn't chasing bounties or running from outlaws. He was following something ancient, mysterious, and alive in a way he had never known. And Kaya, she was more than a guide. She was the key to understanding it. As they moved deeper, a sandstorm rose in the distance. Its orange and red winds twisted violently, throwing debris into the air. Jace and Kaya pulled their cloaks tight and adjusted their goggles. The hover horses glided carefully over the uneven ground, their thrusters kicking up sparks as they navigated the rocky terrain. "This canyon changes every season," Kaya said. "Paths disappear. Rocks shift. The pulse. It knows the safe way." Jace studied the horizon, spotting a narrow bridge of rock spanning a deep chasm. The canyon dropped sharply on both sides. Without the bridge, they would have to go miles out of their way, but the pulse's glow confirmed that it was the correct path. "Looks tricky," Jace said, his voice tight with caution. "But if the pulse says it's safe, I'll trust it." Kaya mounted her hover horse and moved first, stepping carefully. Jace followed, the ground beneath them uneven and fragile. The wind whipped across the canyon, threatening to knock them off balance, but the pulse guided each step. Halfway across, Jace glanced at Kaya. She wasn't afraid. She had the calm certainty of someone who had faced danger before. It reminded him of the old cowboys he had admired, silent, skilled, and fearless. At the other side, they found a hidden path leading down into a valley filled with strange metallic formations. The valley shimmered under the twin suns, metal reflecting light in dazzling patterns. The air hummed with energy, and Jace could feel it vibrating through the soles of his boots. "This is it," Kai said softly. "The colony. Hidden for centuries. My ancestors protected it. And now it's waiting for us." Jace crouched, studying the area. The metallic formations were not natural. They were structures, buildings, and machines, long abandoned but still operational. Tiny lights flickered along the surfaces, responding to their presence. The pulse grew stronger, almost as if it recognized them. "They're alive," Jace whispered. "Not in the usual sense, but aware. Conscious almost." Kaya nodded. "It's technology, yes. But also something more. My people believed it was a gift from the stars, a tool to protect our frontier homes. And now, it needs guardians." As they moved deeper into the valley, the ground began to shake faintly. Small rocks shifted and cracked. The hover horses adjusted automatically, thrusters humming to keep them balanced. Jace glanced at Kaya. "Something's moving down there. Not the drones, something else." Before Kaya could answer, a soft glow emerged from one of the structures ahead. Panels of metal shifted, revealing a smooth, open chamber. Inside, the walls were covered in lights and intricate lines of energy. The pulse seemed to emanate from the center, stronger than ever. Jace and Kaya dismounted, stepping carefully into the chamber. The air was cool, almost refreshing compared to the desert heat outside. The walls hummed, responding to their presence. A small pedestal in the center projected a holographic star map, glowing faintly in the dim light. "The colony," Kaya whispered. "It's showing us the stars, and the paths to other hidden colonies. My ancestors left this for the future, for someone who could understand." Jace moved closer, studying the map. He traced the lines with his fingers, amazed. This was beyond anything he had seen before. The technology was advanced, yes, but it was also elegant, alive in a way that felt almost organic. "The drones," Jace said. "They'll find this place if we're not careful."
They're fast, precise, and relentless.
Kaya nodded. "We have to protect it. We have to understand it before anyone else does."
That's why the pulse guided us here.
"And that's why you're here too." Jace looked at her, realizing she trusted him completely. Not just with her life, but with the future of this hidden colony and the knowledge it contained. For a cowboy who had long traveled alone, who had trusted no one, that was a weighty responsibility. "Then we do it together," he said quietly. Kaya smiled faintly. Together. They spent hours examining the chamber, learning its patterns and understanding the pulse. The technology seemed almost sentient, responding to their touch, showing them paths, energy sources, and maps to distant colonies hidden across the galaxy. The more they explored, the more Jace realized how vital this knowledge was. If the drones, or worse, someone with ill intent, found it first, it could change the frontier in ways no one wanted. As night fell, the twin moons rose over the canyon, casting pale light across the valley. Outside, the faint buzz of drones could be heard, still scanning the desert for signs of the pulse. Jace and Kaya moved to the edge of the chamber, watching carefully. "They're getting closer," Jace said. "We'll need a plan if they reach the valley." Kaya nodded. "There's a hidden path through the canyon. It's dangerous, but it will give us time to protect the colony and reach the asteroid belt. That's where the main technology is stored, where it can't be taken easily." Jace studied the path. Jagged rocks, narrow ledges, and deep drops made it nearly impossible for anyone who didn't know the terrain. But the pulse illuminated the safest way. "We follow it," he said. "Careful, slow, and smart." At dawn, they mounted their hover horses again, moving cautiously through the canyon. Each turn revealed new challenges: broken bridges, narrow ledges, shifting sands. But the pulse guided them, and Kaya's instincts kept them safe. Jace began to trust the technology as much as he trusted her. Together they navigated the canyon, the hum of the pulse like a rhythm guiding their every move. Hours passed. The suns climbed high, and the desert heat pressed down on them. Yet the bond between Jace and Kaya grew stronger with each challenge. They worked silently, trusting each other's instincts, their teamwork seamless. For the first time in years, Jace felt something beyond survival: hope, purpose, and connection. Finally, they reached a plateau overlooking the outer edge of the asteroid belt. Tiny, glittering stations floated in space, hidden among the rocks. This was the next stage of their journey, where the colony's core technology was stored, safe from the desert, the drones, and anyone who might misuse it. Kaya dismounted and pointed toward the floating stations. "That's where we go next. The pulse ends there. Everything we followed is leading to that place." Jace nodded, looking at the stars beyond the belt. The adventure was far from over. The drones would keep coming and new dangers awaited, but for the first time he wasn't alone. With Kaya by his side, he could face whatever came next. "Ready, cowboy?" Kaya asked, a faint smile on her face. Jace tipped his hat, feeling a spark of excitement he hadn't felt in years. "Ready," he said. Together, they prepared their hover horses for the leap into space, toward the asteroid belt and the hidden colony. The pulse had guided them this far, and it would guide them further. And though the challenges ahead were unknown, Jace felt certain of one thing. This was the adventure he had been waiting for, and he would not face it alone. The desert below faded as they rose toward the stars, the canyon shrinking beneath them. Ahead lay the glittering asteroid belt, the hidden colony, and a future full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And with Kaya at his side, Jace knew that whatever happened, they would face it together. The asteroid belt stretched before them like a glittering maze of stone and metal, suspended in the darkness of space. Tiny colonies floated among the rocks, lights blinking softly, some abandoned, some humming faintly with life. Jace six-shot Mallory and Kaya maneuvered their hover horses through the thin atmosphere of the station's protective field, the pulse from the hidden colony still guiding them. "This is it," Kaya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes shone with awe. The main colony, the heart of the technology. Jace studied the floating stations carefully. Unlike the desert structures they had passed, this place was advanced beyond anything he had seen before. Smooth metal surfaces reflected starlight, and energy fields shimmered around entrances and docking bays. Security drones hovered silently, their sensors sweeping the space around them, scanning for any signs of intruders. "We'll need to be smart," Jace said, adjusting the controls on his hover horse. "Rushing in will get us noticed. But the pulse, it's still strong here. It'll help us find the right way." Kaya nodded, leading the way. She guided them through a series of asteroid paths, using the pulse as a map. Each movement had to be precise. One wrong turn, and the gravitational pull of the larger asteroids could send them spinning into space. Jace's heart pounded with excitement and tension. This was unlike any canyon, desert, or frontier town he had ever ridden through. The stakes were higher, the danger stranger, but the thrill reminded him of the first days he had ridden across dusty plains as a young cowboy chasing outlaws and surviving storms. They reached a large station embedded in the side of a massive asteroid. Lights blinked along its surface, and the entrance shimmered with a protective energy field. The pulse was strongest here, almost like a heartbeat beneath the metal. "This is it," Kaya said softly. "Inside is the chamber, the heart of the colony's technology. The pulse it's calling us." Jace dismounted, his boots clanking against the metal surface. He could feel the vibrations through the soles of his boots, the energy of the pulse thrumming in the air. For a moment he thought he could hear whispers, faint and distant, like the colony itself was alive. Together they entered the station. Inside, the chamber was vast, filled with towering machines and glowing panels. Lines of energy snaked along the walls, converging on a central platform. The pulse grew stronger as they approached, almost demanding their attention. Kaya stepped forward, her fingers brushing over the glowing lines. "This technology, it can stabilize the energy grids for all the frontier colonies. It can protect the towns, the miners, the people who live in harsh worlds like Dustspire. But it must be protected. If the wrong hands take it," her voice trailed off, filled with urgency. Jace nodded. "Then we make sure it stays safe. That's what we came for." They worked together, tracing the pulse and following the glowing pathways. The station seemed to respond to their presence, lights brightening, doors opening, and pathways rearranging themselves. The technology wasn't just advanced, it was intelligent. It knew they were protectors, not thieves. From outside, a faint signal shimmered. The drones that had chased them across the desert were still following, and some had tracked them into the asteroid belt. Their sensors were precise, scanning for the source of the pulse. Jace glanced at Kaya. "They're coming," he said. Kaya's eyes narrowed. "We have to act fast. The pulse can guide us to a safe hiding spot, but we can't let them interfere." Jace thought quickly. The hover horse's thrusters could create temporary shields in space, using magnetic fields to deflect scans. He activated the controls, and a shimmering barrier formed around the station, hiding them from the drone's sensors. "Good thinking, Cowboy," Kaya said with a faint smile. "Just doing my job," he replied, though he allowed himself a small grin. The drones hovered at a distance, scanning but unable to detect the hidden colony. Inside, the pulse guided them to the central platform. A small pedestal held a device that glowed softly, lines of energy converging toward its core. Kaya touched it, and the pulse surged through the chamber, illuminating the walls and machines. "It's complete," she whispered. "The colony is ready. The technology is secure. And the pulse, it has chosen us as guardians." Jace studied her, realizing the weight of her words. They hadn't just followed a signal across deserts and canyons. They had become part of something bigger, something that could protect entire worlds. For a cowboy who had long traveled alone, this was more than adventure. This was purpose. A sudden vibration shook the chamber. The drones had detected the pulse's energy fluctuations. They were approaching quickly, closing in despite the shields. "Time to move," Jace said. "We can't let them interfere with the colony." The pathway was narrow, twisting through energy corridors that seemed alive. Lights shifted to illuminate their way, responding to their presence. The pulse was stronger here, almost urging them forward. Outside, the drones hovered at the edge of the shields, frustrated but unable to penetrate the field. Jace and Kaya moved carefully, following the pulse to the final chamber. The device there hummed with energy, projecting a map of the frontier, showing all the hidden colonies, power sources, and energy grids. "This is incredible," Jace said. "With this, we can protect entire regions, keep towns safe from disasters, power failures, even resource shortages." Kaya smiled faintly. "And no one else can misuse it. Not the drones, not raiders, not anyone." The drones began to retreat, their sensors failing to locate the source. The pulse had hidden them, guided them, and protected them. Jace and Kaya watched as the shimmer of the shields faded, leaving the colony safe and undisturbed. For a moment, the silence of space surrounded them. The stars glittered beyond the asteroid belt, and the pulse pulsed softly, like a heartbeat beneath the station. Jace realized that this was more than survival, more than discovery. This was connection. To the technology, to Kaya, and to something greater than himself. Kaya stepped closer to him, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the chamber. "Do you want something from me too, Cowboy?" she asked quietly, echoing the question from their first meeting in the desert. Jace paused, letting the words sink in. He had traveled across dangerous deserts, faced relentless drones, and followed a pulse across worlds. But the answer was simple. He didn't want riches. He didn't want fame. He wanted trust, partnership, and someone who understood the path he had walked for so long. "I already have it," he said, tipping his hat slightly, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I've found what I was looking for." Kaya's smile grew, faint but warm. Together they gazed at the glowing device, the pulse, and the map of hidden colonies. The frontier was safe for now, the technology secure, and their bond stronger than ever. They spent the night in the chamber, studying the map, learning the paths, and planning how to protect the colonies. Outside, the asteroid belt shimmered under the twin moons, silent and still. The drones had retreated, but they knew they would return eventually. And when they did, Jace and Kaya would be ready. In the quiet of the chamber, Jace realized that the adventure had changed him. He had started as a lone cowboy, wandering deserts and canyons, surviving on instinct and skill. But now, with Kaya at his side, he was part of something larger, a mission to protect worlds, guided by a pulse that was both technology and life. As the twin moons rose higher, casting pale light across the asteroid stations, Jace and Kaya prepared to leave the chamber. They mounted their hover horses once more, ready to explore the rest of the colony and secure the paths to other hidden worlds. "The frontier has changed," Jace said softly. "And so have we." Kaya nodded. "Together we can face whatever comes next. The pulse chose us, and we won't let it down." Jace looked at the stars beyond the asteroid belt, feeling a thrill he hadn't known in years. Adventure, danger, and discovery awaited, but he was no longer alone. With Kaya by his side, and the hidden colony safe, the frontier had room for heroes. And for quiet bonds that could change the course of entire worlds. The twin suns of the distant system began to rise, illuminating the asteroid belt in gold and red. Jace and Kaya rode toward the next adventure, their hover horses gliding silently among the floating stations, guided by the pulse, the stars, and the trust they had built together. The desert, the canyons, and the mysteries of Iridia, Seven had led them here. And now the galaxy itself awaited, full of secrets, wonders, and adventures yet to be discovered. And somewhere deep in the pulse of the colony, a quiet voice seemed to echo, almost human in its tone. Welcome, Guardians. Your journey is just beginning. A path to Kaya, the corners of his mouth lifting in a rare smile. Looks like the frontier's bigger than we thought, he said. Kaya laughed softly, a sound that carried warmth even in the cold vacuum of space. Bigger, yes. But we're ready. Together they rode forward into the unknown, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as... And, for the first time in a long time, Jace felt truly alive.